Hey there, welcome to Comment Commentary, where I comment on comments that have been commented to me. Yes, I think that's clear. So, I don't know what to call this thing. I kind of want to call it the feedback loop trail or something weird like that, but I mean, basically what it is people send in comments now and then, and sometimes I want to answer up to those comments, make comments or something like that. So it's commentary. So here we go. This is generally comments from videos I've done in the past from about July-ish through September. So if you said anything really recently, probably not going to be here. I'll do another one of these probably around December to January of things that I get during the wintertime. So this is just basically from, summerish into the end of September. So from Hiker Homily number 106, which was where I was talking about, hey, is it too much to ask that we hikers have at least a basic knowledge of things like, ecosystems and life sciences and stuff like that. One of the things I got from, I believe this is Facebook, Holly Cho, I'm with you on this. But as someone who works in science education research, I think we can also frame this another way. The outdoors presents a wonderful opportunity to educate hikers and outdoors enthusiasts about ecology in an informal setting. And you know what? First off, I'm 100% with you on that, Holly. Being outdoors is great. One of the most amazing experiences in my life, aside from the fact that it's where I met my wife and some other amazing experiences, was an environmental education summer camp that I went to, and being taught about basic ecology and ecosystems and the natural world when you're actually out in nature is absolutely incredible. It's amazing. It is a fantastic opportunity. But here's the caveat there. Again, it's just my view that if you're a hiker who's going to go out into nature, you really should, on your own, educate yourself. Yes, our educational system isn't going to be perfect. Public schools, even private schools, it's not going to focus on everything and things like that. My wife, being a science teacher and all that, puts some important emphasis on it and things like that. But it's really up to us as adults to educate ourselves. And it's not really my job as someone who's just going out hiking and trying to enjoy things to try to educate other people. Number one, sometimes it leads to conflict depending on how you approach stuff. I'll do my best for certain things. If someone's being a complete jerk or destroying something, I'll like, hey, that's not really right, and try to do my best to do it nicely and to hopefully educate them about why it's not right and things like that. But it really shouldn't be my job. It should be their job as an adult to educate themselves. But see, sometimes that's like we got into the other thing on that very video where I talked about there are people out there who do not care. They just don't, and there's no amount of education that's going to help that. It's unfortunate. But I do appreciate that, Holly, and I do agree with you. Education on the to have an opportunity to be outside doing education in the outdoors is absolutely incredible. Going back to Hiker Homily 105, which was about startup costs and things like that, we have Mr. John Wimmer. Hi, John. I'm a big fan of budget gear. The only reason I am not still using my $20 box store trekking poles is I lost one in the Sandy River in the Timberline Trail last August. That is a bummer. I got a 750 milliliter titanium pot cup on Amazon for $26. Spent a lot of hours looking for budget items. And I agree with that. And if you have the time and the ability, I wholeheartedly agree with that. The hiking hobby can be expensive and prohibitive, but there are ways to mitigate that. I've done a hiker homily on trying to do that. Everything from thrift stores, garage sales, and I mentioned some of these in the video, in video number 105. But sometimes it just takes time and the ability to go through things like look for good deals, take chances sometimes with big box store stuff. Yes, sometimes you'll get something that doesn't last more than a hike. Okay, the upside to that is it didn't cost a huge amount of money and you learned a lesson from that. Okay, I'm not going to trust that thing. But other times you just never know. John here says he had a really good pair of trekking poles that worked great until he lost one pair. So it wasn't the poles that were the problem. Was unfortunately he lost a pole and things like that. But $20, and that's the set I use is a $20 big box store trekking poles, and they have lasted the Lost Coast Trail, parts of the PCT, a lot of other backpacking I've done through the Sierras, and a lot of day hiking all around the valley and in the hills and things like that. And they're just kicking butt for me. $20. That's all I had to spend. And they've been fantastic. So you just never know. You got to look around. So thank you, John, for the comment. Always appreciate it. Going back to Hiker Homily 106, John Swafield. Again, this time from Facebook. Everyone, hiker or not, should have a basic understanding of our life support system. I totally agree. And then we've got John chiming in there with a little meme of it's science. But it is. I totally agree with that. 100% John. Unfortunately, like we covered before, it just doesn't always work that way. And unfortunately, there are people who absolutely don't care. They're out there for whatever personal stats or bragging rights. I climbed this peak. I did this. I did that. But the actual trail itself, the peak itself, they could care less. They don't care about preserving it. They don't care about taking care of it. Just the fact that they were able to do this trail and get to the top of that peak, check mark. All right, on to the next thing. And they could care less about the actual nature of it. And it's unfortunate. Going to Hiker Homily 101. This is from the comments below the video. So from YouTube, Thomas Jordan says, what an awesome channel. I really like your intro. Great advice as well. And I found that your point about being flexible with the plan has been a big one on many of my trips. Thanks for sharing. I'll be back. Hey, number one, thank you for the feedback. Always appreciate to hear that people are enjoying the channel. Always like that. Totally appreciate it. And this was my hiker homily about the kinds of, some tips for your first backpack trip to make it a successful trip so that maybe you want to go backpacking again, that you actually enjoy it. And one of the tips I had was be flexible. Yes, and I've done videos on prepping things. I've done videos on how to set stuff up and what you should do for research and things. But all of that planning and things like that, within that mix, you need to be flexible. Yes, you wanted to do this, and this on this first day of hiking, but it looks like you're only going to get this and this done. This part's not going to work. Don't let that ruin your trip. You cannot be so focused on a checklist that your trip gets ruined because all the check marks aren't there. Be flexible. Understand that the best of plans, once you actually get out there, are going to change, will probably change, and so just deal with it that way. It's okay. So be flexible. Totally agree with it, and I'm glad other people agree with it too. All right, this one's going all the way back to Hiker Homily 95, John Wimmer again, and this is about couples hiking. My main point was, if you are going to hike as a couple, a lot of people have certain fears or concerns that just I'm not sure where those concerns came from. It's like, look, this is, we're not asking you to glue yourselves to each other just because you're going to hike together. There are, things like that. But he says, nope, mine has zero interest. Her idea of roughing it, he's referring to his wife, is a hotel without a room service. Thanks, John. Hey, that's unfortunate. My wife and I have been on many backpacking trips together because I think I've made it known several times on this channel and other places that she and I met at a environmental ed camp that included backpacking. And our relationship really grew to a friendship on those backpacking trips with that camp and things like that. When we were younger, she would do that a lot. Now she's not into it anymore, and so I no longer have her as a backpacking partner. She likes to kayak, and I will go with her on kayaking trips. So we have that outdoor experience. She will sometimes go with us on day hikes and stuff like that, depending on who's going and where we're going and stuff like that. But she is just at a point right now in her life. Well, number one, she's still busy. She's unfortunately not retired like I am. But yeah, she enjoys the outdoors and things, but the whole backpacking part of it, still loves the camp. The whole backpacking part of it, not as much. She may still go on the occasional trip depending on who's going to go and things, but for the most part, my wife either. But I can get her into a hotel without room service, and she still doesn't consider that roughing it. But she can get a little rougher than that. But sorry about that, John. Going into some of the hiker skills that I suggested hikers learn. That's way back, Hiker Homily 90. This is from Tolkis and and Hrimennerson. That's a mouthful. That is a mouthful. Good list. I would add basic cooking and basic sewing, but honestly, that and basic first aid are, in my humble opinion, basic life skills everyone should know, not just hikers. And I agree with that, especially in the cooking, sewing, first aid, things like that. I did not mention cooking because I was trying to keep it general for all hiking, including day hiking, and you're not going to do much cooking there. Yes, basic cooking skills do help when you're backpacking. Although I got to be honest, you don't have to know a whole lot about cooking, because for most of backpacking, if you are going to cook, most of the time what you're doing is adding water to a dehydrated meal and heating it back up. Even if you make your own and things like that, you are basically boiling water, and that's the extent of the cooking you have to do. So I didn't really think it was worthy of the top 5 things I think hikers should do or backpackers should really kind of have a basic skill of. Most of the cooking is boiling water, to be honest. I know there are some backpackers out there who really go for it and like do the whole thing up, but that's the minority. The majority of backpackers cooking when you're backpacking, especially through hiking, is heating water. So that's kind of why I didn't put that in there. Sewing is a definite important skill. First aid I did not include on there because I would consider that a survival skill, and I am going to do a list on my top 5 survival skills that I think backpackers and hikers should know, and first aid will be on that list for sure. Dun, 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 dun. We are moving along. Where the heck am I now? Hiker Homily 96. This is from Facebook. Gary Adams. And this was the episode on hypothermia. I have several metabolic anomalies. I do not shiver is one. I also don't get cold as most people do. My way of shivering is I cramp all over, especially my back, but it is a very late sign, so strike 2 warnings for me. And what he's talking there about how I mentioned several times in the video that you have this list of things that says, oh, these things are mild, these are moderate, these are severe hypothermia, so watch out, blah, blah, blah. But I did put the caveat in there because of guys like Gary, that humans have a variance, and not everyone is going to tick off that list. And so I specifically said in that video, and Gary makes that good point, is you cannot look at somebody and say, well, they're not shivering, so they can't be that bad. Okay, you have to go by all the cues and talk to them and see what's going on with them when you're doing basic first aid for things like hypothermia, because not everybody is going to have the same signs as other humans for certain stages. Okay, and so you'd have somebody like Gary, you're trying to help them with hypothermia. You're not going to look for shivering. Hopefully he'll be conscious enough to tell you, hey, my body's a little different, it doesn't do certain things, blah blah blah. So, and that happens. That's human variance. So be aware of that. And finally, going back to 105, again, the startup costs. Mark Ainsworth, also from Facebook. Actually, my financial advisor complimented me on getting into hiking and backpacking. It's a pretty low cost in the spectrum of retirement hobbies. He said to watch out for my finances if I ever got into golf. And that's true. Golf can be pretty expensive. The one thing I want to say, and Mark, thank you for commenting, and that's awesome for your situation. That's fantastic. But one thing I did want to comment on is we all have to be aware of the fact that just because it's not a problem with you and your financial advisor, and I'm not specifically bagging on Mark here, I'm just saying we all have to be mindful of this. That doesn't mean it's not a cost prohibitive thing for other people. When I got into backpacking, I was a teenager whose major income came from mowing lawns, home allowance, and whatever money happened to come my way in birthday cards and things like that. I didn't have a financial advisor at that time, and when I got into backpacking, I had to find ways to get gear or do without. And it was almost prohibitive. I almost wasn't able to do it. I worked my butt off mowing lawns and doing extra things for my parents to make a little extra on the allowance in order to afford my first backpack and things like that. And there are people out there today that they don't have financial advisors and they can't retire, and so they're not going to get pats on the backs for picking a low-cost hobby compared to other hobbies. It's great if you are able to do that. It's fantastic. I myself am now retired, and I can pretty much pick and choose what gear I want. If I really want that expensive backpack or sleeping bag or whatever, I could do it. My mind frame is not there, so I don't. I'm still the type of guy that tries to cut costs if I can, but I don't 100% have to. And there are a lot of people out there who absolutely cannot. They must cut costs. It is an expensive hobby for them, and they don't have the ability to just like, it's not that big of a deal compared to golf. Yeah, a lot of folks can't do that. So let's just be mindful of that. Is my comment on that. Again, I'm not getting on Mark because he's 100% right from his perspective and his ability. He did pick a pretty good hobby compared to some of the ones you can pick in retirement. Oh yeah. But for the folks who are not lucky enough to have a retirement and saved up and things like that, this is an expensive hobby, and it keeps some people, the expense keeps some people out of the hobby. So we need to kind of look at mitigations and ways to try to go cheap on that. All right. That's commentary for this time. That's the main comments I got back for the most part. Even the little ones that I do get, though, I do appreciate, and I at least try to give them a thumbs up, either on Facebook or YouTube or wherever they come in and things like that. And I do appreciate even the small comments that say, nice video, thank you so much, great list, things like that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that feedback. It tells me there are people out there paying attention and to the videos and getting something out of it. So that's cool. I appreciate that. And that's it for now. Again, look for another commentary, probably December-ish, January. If I get enough comments, it's going to be part of the thing, is if I get enough comments coming in from folks on Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of thing on the videos that I post from the beginning of October all the way through December, then I'll be answering to some of those comments and things like that. I've already got a couple, so I think we'll be doing okay. It might be a short show, but who knows. But for that one, that's it for now. As always, thank you so much for watching this channel, and especially for comments like this, thank you so much for the feedback. Really appreciate that. That makes it even better, makes it a little bit more worthwhile. I'm having fun with my little channel, and getting comments and stuff makes it even better. More funner, as we say around my house. And other than that, I'll see you next time.